Hello everyone, I'm very excited to be making this special video. Boy, I tell you, never thought I'd see releases like this. I mean, I've been collecting movies for a long time. I have all kinds of DVDs, Blu-ray, high definition remasters, and so forth. I've never seen such wonderful, glorious restorations as I have with this. Now I'm talking about brand new releases from ClassicFlix restorations, and I'm talking about the Our Gang comedies known as the Little Rascals from television release. A lot of us grew up with these. I have to tell you, if you were a child in the 60s and 70s, maybe even the 50s, I have to say this was such a regular part of your television viewing. Mom would leave you in the living room in front of the TV. And I know for me, as a little boy, I've been watching these from 3, 4, 5 years old. And it became such a permanent diet of television for me that even though I haven't seen these with regularity in recent decades, all the words, the music cues, the images, frame by frame, are still embedded in here. You know what I mean if you grew up with them. And I say this now with a little bit of humor, but tongue in cheek, but if by any chance you grew up without the Little Rascals, you had a deprived childhood. I'm sorry. But seriously now, yeah, I'm going to talk about how great these look in a minute. But before I do, I want to say these films, the Our Gang theatrical shorts, they run about, 20, 21 minutes around there for the most part. And throughout the history of home video, they've been available on budget releases. I think one of the first quality releases that ever came out was a 21 VHS tape set on Cabin Fever. A lot of you who are collectors will remember those. It was quite an eye-opening experience to get those Cabin Fever videotapes back in the day because they really looked pretty good, and they were as complete as we'd seen these because these were always cut for television, and it was the first time I remember seeing a lot of footage and a lot of shorts that had been left out of the original syndicated television run. Some shorts were never shown at all. They were eliminated from the package altogether. And then in other cases, as I say, they were heavily cut. So the Cabin Fever VHS tape release was really quite an achievement for the day. But after that, we had this in 2008, I believe it was, this came out. And this was the next best thing after that. It's a DVD release, 80 original theatrical shorts. And I should say, what we're talking about here, we're talking about the period of sound. Because the Rascals, Our Gang really, had maybe 100 or so. I don't even know how many silent films that came along before the sound talkies. Talkies were introduced in 1929. But what we're talking about here are about 80 movies, short films, to be shown in theaters before television. And they were all sound, beginning in 1929 all the way to 1938. That's the cream of the crop. I don't get involved after the kind of 1938 run as we get into the 40s and such with the so-called froggy years. I'm not a big fan of those really hardcore later day, too serious sometimes MGM films. But this is the cream of the crop. Anyway, this came out, as I say, 2008, and it was an improvement because here it says remastered, restored, and uncut. Well, some of them were cut still, I have to say, and not all of the title cards were used. At the beginning, when you see the titles, some of them had their original titles, and in some cases they couldn't get the original titles or find a print with it. So they wound up using I think what's called the Black Hawk titles, kind of like the screen looks just all black and it just has white lettering on it, Black Hawk Films. So it was an imperfect collection, even if it was a little the best up to that point. Now, an example of one of the films that were cut, you could see in here. I have a little disc inserted in the pocket there that I did. It's called Washy Irony Uncut. There's an episode here called Washy Irony, and it was spliced. It was cut in this edition. So I had to take an old compilation I had of the Little Rascals films. This one was called Little Rascals, let's see, Collector's Edition 3. And washy irony was fortunately uncut on here, so I had to kind of like stick it in this little envelope here and include it in my set just to have a complete set. That was really the only one that was really troublesome, as I recall. But I mean, as I say, before I get to the new stuff, I just want to talk about this older one from 2008. I mean, this was nice. It came with a little booklet, you know, and a lot of you, I'm sure, watching this have this. You know, it has information on here, and it's a nice little package all around. You know, it wasn't bad for the time, but this thing is now completely obsolete, by the way. I like the way it had opened up like that. Now you're going to notice these discs in here. It gets confusing what I'm going to tell you. The discs in here were not perfect. Sometimes you'd have artifacting. Even though they were kind of remastered and fixed up for the first time, you would see occasional artifacting, and I think they call it tiling, and all kinds of like blurriness popping in here and there. They weren't perfect. And this was released by the Genius group of entertainment. Genius Entertainment. But get a load of this. Eventually, this release came over redone, I believe, by Vivendi. 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 And what I have here, these discs are not the discs that came originally with this box. No. I bought the Vivendi discs cheap as standalone releases, and I plugged them into here because those were a little improved. They did a little better work with the tiling and the smearing look on some of them from the artifacting. And so that's what I did. I had to rebuy these as single editions and stick them in the Genius box. So this is not really the way it came. But as I say, this is just to be official, to get historical on you, because what matters now is just these. I cannot say enough. There's no way that I'm going to be overrating these. Believe me when I tell you, the picture, the restoration on these pictures is fantastic. I mean, look at this. That's what they look like. I mean, all the scratches have been taken out. All the moments of darkness, cue marks, burn marks, splices. I never saw them look this good, folks. And I'm talking about from when I was a child. This probably didn't look this good in 1930, to tell you the truth. I mean, definitely not. Okay? There's no way. There's just no way they look this good. And the sound has been improved as well. Now, these have occasionally hissing on there. A little bit of hissing, a little bit of surface background noise. You can't always get a lot of that out of there. But I'm telling you, for anybody who's an aficionado of these as I am and knows them by heart, it's gonna be like watching these for the very first time. No exaggeration there. They are a must. Let me say that again. These are a must for you and your collection if you like this material. Now, so far, we're only seeing 3 of these released. Since there were about 80 films, I'm guessing we're going to get up to maybe 7 or 8 volumes of this. Now, so far, here's what we have. This is volume 1. Remember, the company is Classic Restorations. ClassicFlix. Well, ClassicFlix Restorations, volume 1. Okay? These are the very earliest talkies where we have, Farina and Joe Cobb in the gang. Marianne Jackson, a little bit of Jackie Cooper comes in. Weezer, all those early ones. And it goes from 1929 to 1930. Then we go to volume 2, which is 1930 and 1931. And of course, there's Jackie Cooper and Chubby. And such good ones on here. This is such a good one. And look, as it says, they're not kidding there. Remastered, uncut, beautifully restored. Not kidding. They're not really trying to sell you anything. These are uncut. And they are beautifully and lovingly restored, painstakingly restored. I don't know how they did it. Okay, finally, the most recent volume up to date, the one everybody's waiting for, I guess, is the introduction of Spanky McFarland. George Spanky McFarland, who's my favorite character in the Rascals. He makes his debut in Volume 3. These are short subjects that are from 1932 and 1933. And yeah, absolutely sensational. I binged watched these. I watched, I think there are 11. I don't know if it's always 11, around 11 shorts on each one. About 30 plus shorts. I watched them all on a binge. Not in one day, but over a couple, 2 days, 3 days, boom. These were all digested. They were fantastic. And I can't wait for Volume 4. Volume 4 is supposed to come out in January of 2022. So very close. We're going to get Volume 4, and that's going to be one of the best ones as we start getting into Spanky growing up a little bit more. And one of the best periods, if not the best period, I think, for the Rascals. So again, people, if you love this material, if you love our gang, you love the Little Rascals, please don't settle with the Cabin Fever tapes anymore. Or there's even a couple of Cabin Fever DVDs. Obsolete. This thing, it served its time. It had its purpose. It's now garbage. We don't need it anymore. I'm telling you, people, this is the only way to go. You will not be sorry. Thanks, everybody. See you later.